I'm joined today with my friend Emily Wong. Emily writes and podcasts about careers and resumes. Emily, why don't you describe just in a few sentences the kind of writing that you do?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much, Anne, for creating this book and allowing me to share this journey with you. I just wanted to say that at the very beginning. I
You're
appreciate
so
that.
sweet.
So, a little bit about me. I am a career profile writer and consultant. And what that means is I either write or I help others write their resumes and their LinkedIn profile, their cover letters, and any other scripts that are related to their careers. And my goal is to help my clients tell their most compelling stories in the fewest number of words. And I do that because I'm thinking about the reader who is the recruiter who doesn't have a lot of time. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but it all resonates. Your talk about servant authorship really resonates with me.
Oh, thank you. Emily has been very kind in experimenting with all these crazy writing exercises that I've sent her while I was working on The Writer's Voice. So I'm really excited to ask her about if there was an exercise that she found particularly useful or that stuck with her. Emily?
Okay. Yes. There were so many interesting things. And when you asked us to say something specific about one thing, it's very, very hard to do, Anne. And I know that's hard for all the other folks who are talking about this. But what I want to go back to that servant authorships, and we actually had a whole podcast episode about your concept, this idea of servant authorship. That was my guiding principle. And it's my guiding principle when I write, and it's my guiding principle when I'm helping others write. Because what we don't realize when we're setting out to find our voice in writing or to learn, or if we find a book on writing, it can be a surprise that, oh, finding our voice is as much about the reader as it is about the author.
Yes.
So all of your other tips and advice, I feel like really support that guiding principle. And it's kind of like a North Star that I'm trying to follow as a writer now. And, to get into, I think if I were to narrow it down, maybe I could narrow it down to just two areas that I thought were really, really helpful to me.
Okay.
One was separating the sentences out in a paragraph and writing them individually. You get to see how long it is, which is part of that exercise. And then the other part is to examine your words, which is part of your exercise on what words are useful or not useful to have in there. So really, really focusing in on those individual sentences. And I do that a lot now because I read your book. It's so helpful. And then the other thing is deciding whether we want to be, do you want to be an authority or do you want to be a guide?
Yeah.
And I know that you say that you like to serve as a guide. And, when I'm reading your books, I have a number of your books. And when I read them, I think of you as my guide.
Oh,
And
that's great.
I don't have a PhD in resume writing. So I don't want to sound like an authority. I want to sound like a friend, like a companion.
Right.
And so that really does inform. And so I'm constantly trying to use the right language rather than saying, you should do this. It's more like we should do it. I should's not the right word, I guess, but it's just kind of like we're in this together, right?
Yeah.
So I think I think that that's I guess it's three things: that it's the servant authorship, the breaking down the sentences, and the deciding who you want to be to serve the needs of that reader.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, the expert or companion is such an important thing to think about. And I suppose it's interesting as you show up in a resume writing. Are you going to present yourself as the expert, or are you going to present yourself as someone who would be an incredible guide companion on the team of the person that you're hiring? So maybe it's a decision to make there too, which is hadn't really thought about that. But It's very
And
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that you can be you can still have your authority and your expertise while being a guide, and you've proven that.
precisely. Thank
And
you.
I also have two different audiences. I forgot to mention that. My one audience as a ghostwriter to, writing people's LinkedIn profiles and resumes, I'm thinking of the recruiter.
Yeah,
And even within those two, resumes are more formal. There are no pronouns. It's very direct. And in the LinkedIn profile, you want to have some personality, so that you want to express some warmth, and you don't want to come off as a pompous ass. So you actually do want to, you want to just balance that the right way.
yep.
And then with my blog, or my blog and my newsletter, it's more of, these are the tips, and I'm going to guide you on that. So
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's
on that.
great. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that all. It's I hope it gives people an idea of some of the kinds of things you encounter in the workbook, depending on what kind of work you do. It's so funny how people pick all sorts of different exercises that pop up to them for where they are, the kind of work they're doing. And that's one reason I've enjoyed doing these. So thank you, Emily. I encourage everyone to check out her podcast, her blog. I will have links with the video